before you even start talking about how did you become successful or whatever, you need to clearly define what success means to you. And then, hey, you go for it, right? It's hard work, consistency, and that's going to give you the best chances of being successful.
Hey everybody, you've tuned into the 0 to 100 podcast, and I'm Travis Dillard. With me is Gabe, and we've got a badass guest joining us, Anthony Tolliver, today. I'm really excited about it. But first, if you don't know who we are, we're all about long-term hold cash flow real estate. We're not talking about flipping. We're not talking about land banking. We're all about how do you achieve time freedom through the vehicle of cash flowing real estate? How do you replace all your W-2 income, your self-employment income, and through cash flow. And we call that R1, retirement number one. Once you hit R1, then in my mind, that's when the magic happens. You get 40 to 50 hours a week back. What could you do with 40 to 50 hours a week? You can play pickleball with Mitch, go lift weights with Gabe, maybe go try and play basketball with Anthony and get your ass kicked. Or maybe you can just go start another business or be philanthropic or whatever. So that's what we're all about. And we don't have Mitch today. Fortunately, Mitch is out doing other things, so it should be a much better podcast today, Gabe. Right?
Yeah, I think it'll be a great podcast. I love Mitch. You like to talk shit about Mitch, but let's talk about Anthony. I'll give Anthony a proper introduction. I am fortunate to call Anthony a friend. For those of you who don't know, Anthony Tolliver, a 14-year NBA veteran. That is a long career. 14 years in the NBA. Entrepreneur and author. He co-authored Foundation for Financial Excellence, aiming to spread financial literacy and inspire others to chase their dreams. A serial investor, Anthony has invested in many major companies, including Airbnb, Turo, and SpaceX, in various other sectors, including real estate. That's our favorite. Retail media and capital funds. In real estate, Anthony's journey began in his hometown of Springfield, Missouri, leading to the creation of Say You Can LLC and Say You Can Development, focused on revitalizing both single and multifamily properties. Anthony is co-founder of several other successful companies, including Act of Faith, a Christian athletic apparel brand, Anything Possible, a fishing rod company featured in many major retailers, and Big Blanket Company, known for creating the world's biggest blanket, one of which I have. It is a huge blanket. I was like, what is this when this gift showed up in my house? Will I ever use it? And almost every winter morning, I put that thing on. It's like a wearable blanket. It is so comfortable. It probably fits Anthony like a t-shirt. It fits me like I don't even know what. So what else? Anthony also serves on the board of Players Media Group, a platform empowering athletes to tell their own stories. So on that note, I'm excited to have Anthony on the show, and I'm excited to get into your story. So welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast show.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know Gabe knows you because you guys are in Gobundance and you're having the same pod. So I told Gabe, I have all kinds of questions for you. And for the record, I love Mitch. He's my business partner and best friend, but he's so easy to make fun of, especially when he's not here.
He can't even defend himself. So that's perfect time to just destroy him.
Yeah. Well, we do it when he is here too. So
enough about Mitch. Let's get into Anthony's story. Anthony, I mean, obviously there was a lot that happened before you played in the NBA and started investing in real estate and buying businesses. So, what was your childhood like, kind of leading up to, those early years, elementary school, middle school, into high school, kind of maybe not pre-basketball, but pre-professional basketball. What was your life like growing up?
Oh man, grew up in Springfield, Missouri, like you said. Small Midwestern town, blue collar type of area where everybody, not a lot of fancy cars, not a lot of there's money, but it was kind of quiet money, and so just kind of grew up in an environment where money was obviously important, but it wasn't the focus. Family focused, faith focused, and people focused. And so, I wouldn't really trade my childhood for anything. The environment it was a great place to be raised and to grow into a man. So, like I said, Springfield, Missouri. Then I went off to Creighton University up in Omaha, Nebraska. That's where I met my wife, and my best friends and the people I do life with now, almost all of those guys and people have come from Creighton University. So shout out to Omaha, Nebraska and Creighton University. So, but like I said, nothing about my childhood, what I say was like no tragedy, nothing that was like crazy. I didn't have a ton of it. I say a ton of adversity. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen to people at a young age. I was just very blessed and fortunate not to have anything major, right? That just like kind of shifted my, rewired my brain at a young age or anything like that. So I was just super blessed and fortunate to have a really amazing childhood and grew up in like I said, an environment that really helped foster a great environment to grow into a man.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anthony, in those early years, like everything I read in your bio, I mean, it's quite a bio. You're doing a lot of things. When did all these things kind of get on your radar? Like, when did basketball start for you? When did you start thinking about investing in businesses? Were you always, at a young age that kind of had this entrepreneurial mindset? And then, of course, real estate. Like, when did all that stuff start kind of popping up in your brain? Was that at a young age, or was that later?
Yeah, I would say I've been pretty entrepreneurial my whole life, mainly because of basketball. I'm not going to lie to you. Basketball was, ever since I have memories, basketball has been something that's been at the forefront of what I wanted to do.
That's weird because I thought about playing professional basketball too.
Me too.
Decided to go a different direction.
Gabe's stature, and I'm the same height as him, so basketball didn't pan out for us. But anyway,
see, so I know Gabe and I know his stature. So on camera he looks short, but at least on camera you look a little taller, man. I'm just gonna give you a little props.
She does.
I've settled into my 5'7". I'm okay with it. Well, and elaborate on what Gabe said, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I read an article because I stalked you, Anthony, and I read an article about your teammates talking about you going back to get like a coupon to get 50 cents off from McDonald's on the way to games. So, but you've always been entrepreneurial minded. And I know that your mom was a big influence in that, at least according to the article I read. So I think what Gabe's trying to get at is but you said there was nothing. A lot of us have sort of this aha, we read Rich Dad Poor Dad. We wanted to change our station life, but you've always been wired for this. So you're saying your why, because we always ask, what's your why? What makes you want to invest and understand how to manage money? And you're saying it was tied to basketball. So that's interesting.
And I'll explain why it was tied to basketball. So I really wanted to maximize my abilities on the court, and so. What does that require? Just like anything else in life, it requires time. It requires you to put in a lot of time. They say the 10,000 hour rule, right? I think for sports, it's probably 100,000 hour rule, right? Because you're always, there's not really a pinnacle. You're always striving to do more, to be better, because perfection's impossible, right? So you're always just adding and adding and adding. Well, for me, the entrepreneurial side of me kind of really grew from, hey, I don't have a lot of extra time. If I'm going to maximize basketball, I don't have a ton of extra time to go get a job, right? I can't go work, which I actually did. So that's what, part of that was when I was 15, I went and got a job at Dairy Queen because I was like, I need some money.
Sure.
So I got a job at Dairy Queen and then I realized, wow, I am under their control. I don't have the ability to control anything in this environment. If I don't come to work when they tell me to come to work, I'm fired. I no longer have a job to produce. So clearly I was like, I need to start my own business. I need to do something for myself. And so I started a lawn mowing business, a car detailing business, and basically just a hustling business. So somebody need their trash cans clean, I'll clean them. Give me $5, I'll do it. Right. And just started realizing that I could make more in 2 hours on a Saturday than I could in a whole week of working at Dairy Queen. And so once I got exposed to it, I was like, oh, well, I'm never having a job like that ever again.
Why would I not do this? I know it's I tell young people too, go start. There's so many, especially these days, there's so many things that need to be done that a lot of people don't want to do, like cleaning gutters or power washing driveways. Like you can outsize your income and have freedom. Or like to your point with Dairy Queen, if you didn't show up, they fire you, or you're relying on an expense profit and loss statement. You're a line item, so they can just cut you out and move on. Yeah, I love that.
Yep. So that's where it all started. Fast forward. Well, that's where the entrepreneurial side started. So just like thinking outside the box and thinking bigger, not just kind of being confined to, I'm going to go get a 9 to 5 and work my way up the chain and be an executive. Like that was never on my list. Right. But also at a young age, my mom was a teacher for 31 years. Never made, I don't think, more than $40,000 a year in her entire career. And but growing up, from ever since I can remember, we would about every second or third of the month, hey, come and jump in the car. We're going to go across town. All right, cool. Go across town. We'll pull up to this same house. Pull up to the same house. She knocks on the door and they hand her a check, right? And we go to the bank, we cash it. And, she goes and pays some bills. She goes and whatever. And at first I was like, I thought that was normal. I thought everybody has a house across town that they go collect checks from. And that's what you do.
Everyone should. Everyone probably should have a house across town that they collect checks from.
Right. And so real estate became such a not easy, but like it just made sense because I saw it. Like I was able to see it, even though it was one unit, right? One house. But it was every month and it helped pay our bills. So it was something that I got exposed to at a young age, by my mom. And as I grew up, I was like, man, like it's definitely something that I want to do. And so with my first, $50,000 or so that I made playing basketball, before I did anything else, I actually bought an investment property. It was the very first thing I bought. Most people buy a house or most people buy a car or something. I bought an investment property. Because I had no clue. I didn't know how long I was going to be able to play basketball. So I was like, well, at least if I buy a property, I can come across town and get a check every month, right? And that's where it started.
So smart. I bet such a small percent. I mean, I know statistically a very small percentage of professional athletes go and buy a investment property with their first check. I'm curious. Did you ever ask your mom about that house? Like, how'd she end up with that rental? Like, any idea why she bought it, how she bought it, how she financed it, what she paid for it? Does she have it today? That's a lot of questions.
Yeah. No, so it was her house she had bought when she first moved to Springfield. And so she bought the house instead of jumping into the rental, community like, so many other people do. Nothing wrong with that, but she found that owning a piece of real estate made sense. And she was, determined to be a homeowner instead of just a renter. So she was able to purchase that house. It was, if I remember correctly, I can actually remember the exact layout. Just give me a second. Walk in, it's a living room. Walk to the right, it's a kitchen. To the left, there were 2, maybe 3 bedrooms, and there's a bathroom in between. So can't remember if it's 2-1 or if it's 3-1. But yeah, I can remember her buying that, or she bought it way before I was born, but she had that. And then whenever she was able to save up enough money, she was able to upgrade the house, right? Like, so we moved to the south side of town. So that was the north side of town. She bought a house on the south side of town, which is kind of the nicer side of town, but it's still 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The house I grew up in, 18 years of my life, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,300 square feet, maybe. Your typical, early 80s starter home, ranch style, no basement, right? And so she kept it. And so she, instead of selling that house to buy this other house, she kept it and just rented it actually to family members for a couple decades.
I love that. I mean, I always ask, like, we're big on mindset and sort of wiring your brain, and what a gift that your mom gave you by putting you in that car and driving you across town. Like, I would argue that single act every month probably propelled you further than maybe a business degree or other things later in life. Because at a young age, and like with my kids, same thing. Like, we get them involved with our rental properties so they understand it, because it just becomes, like you said, it's just normal. Of course, you're going to buy a property and you're going to rent it out for passive income. I mean, again, the fact that she did that, what a gift, because I would argue that if she didn't, that wouldn't really, you wouldn't what you don't know, right? You don't know what to do. And
right.
so, and I love that you took $50,000, and because a lot of probably people that have never had $50,000, including myself, because I was a complete jackass, still am a little bit, but I'd take that 50,000, when you're young and you don't ever have anything, you're going to go buy a car. You're going to go buy something flashy. You're going to go buy something and you immediately go buy a rental property. So I love the correlation there. I think that's really powerful. So did you buy this property after you got out of college? Was it when you got into the NBA, or give us the time frame when you decided to do this? So
when I got out of college, I didn't get drafted. Got in the hard way, undrafted free agent, fought my way into the league. But also the first 3 years I was in, then I got cut. And I was in, and I got cut. And got cut, and I got cut. And I was in, I got cut. And it was just the back and forth between the NBA, the D League, which is now the G League, and then overseas. So I played in Germany and Turkey as well. In between time, right? It was like, hey, I'm just trying to make some money and get back so I can try to get back in the NBA. And so the first 3 years of my career were first 3 years, I think I played for a total of 10 teams or something like that.
Including the Blazers, right? Over here in Portland.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it was I was everywhere. I was all over the place, but I had a goal in mind, and I just stayed with it, just constantly stayed with it. And so, but yeah, man, I mean, that's where it all started. And so when I started getting some checks in, I mean, my cost of living at that point, no kids, no wife, no responsibilities at all. Used to being a broke college student. Oh, I was like, I need a couple $1,000 a month max, right? So I can use all this money and go buy, investments and do things with it that will hopefully produce money instead of it just being, going into something stupid. Because once again, it wasn't like I wasn't a young, with some stupid thought processes, right? Like I was doing some of those types of things, some of these investments, because I was really protecting it from me. Right? Like, hey, if it's just sitting in my account, I might just go spend it on something stupid. So instead of doing that, let me go buy a house. I can't you can go sell a house, but that's a lot more of a process than, hey, I'm going to go transfer this money over to them to do this or to buy this chain or something stupid. I was like, no, let me just buy a house.
So Anthony, tell us about that first property and then how that parlayed into kind of where you're at today with all these other investments and real estate that you own as well.
Yeah, 1544 South John. Still remember the address. Actually, still own it. Still one of the properties.
I was going to ask you that. Still own it. Cool.
Still own it. I don't have any plans of selling it. Honestly, it's just more nostalgia than I make a couple bucks a month. It's nothing, right? But it's just more so. This is my first property, my first investment. I think I'm going to keep it. Probably hand it over to my kids at some point, just cause.
Sure.
But yeah, that it really just jumping into a situation where we had, money started coming in, right, at a pretty good clip. And, some of my checks started being bigger than my mom's salary for the year, and or my mom's old salary, because at that time she had retired, and then unfortunately about 6 months after she retired, she passed away. But it just became, but she prepared me for all this, right? She prepared me to live life, moving forward. So unfortunately, she never got a chance to see me play in the NBA. But once I made it, I was ready to face the world because of what she taught me and everything else. And so, I just went in with the mindset of, hey, no clue how long this is going to last. So I started preparing for the end at the beginning. And so that was my mindset throughout my NBA career. Was when I got money in, that's awesome. Cool. I might buy me a little something here and there, a little whatever, little treat for myself, right? Some shoes or, something cool. But then it's I'm talking 90+% or whatever is going to go into a bucket that's going to be going out the door to professionally manage something, or real estate, or, we talked about these different businesses that have private equity that I've bought into. That's where this portfolio came from, was just over a decade of just consistent planting seeds, right?
Anthony, I want to dig in a little bit into your mindset then, because you mentioned it briefly, and I know we've talked about it before, like that every year you didn't know if it was your last year playing. I mean, you ended up with a 14-year career, which is not very common. And so I'm curious, like the opportunities that came to you, my understanding is that a lot of professional athletes, they get a lot of opportunities, but they're not necessarily always good opportunities. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to kind of pry on these athletes, like, hey, they make a lot of money, but they don't know anything about maybe investing, or the majority of them don't. And so I'm just going to throw all these opportunities. So I can imagine as you started making money, there was probably quite a bit of opportunities, some good, some bad. How did you sift through that? How did you align yourself with the right people and the right opportunities to say, yes, this is a good investment, whether it was business, whether it was real estate, but then also the mindset around like, hey, I don't know if I'll play next year. And then I don't know if I'll play the next year. And I don't know if I'll play the next year. What was the mindset, but then the actions you took towards, I guess, ultimately execute on yes on this deal, no on this deal, invest this much, save this much. Just kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. I would say like the majority of my thought process going through, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to figure out kind of the best strategies and everything else? The typical player, you get into the NBA or NFL or wherever, and you get a financial advisor, right? Like that's what you do. And majority of financial advisors, all they do is say, hey, send me all the money. You play your sport. I'll do everything financial. You don't have to worry about any of that. Just play basketball.
Charge you 1%, put it in an index fund. Right.
Right. So, which, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not against financial advisors. I have financial advisors, right? Like I followed the protocol. But what I realized, after a short period of time was the way that they do business, the way that they structure their stuff is really more geared towards people who make a little bit of money. I say a little bit, but like a maybe decent amount of money over a long period of time, right? A lot of their strategies and a lot of the things that they implement with their clients are really more geared for your typical, let's say, C-suite, CFO or whatever, making $150,000 a year.
Retire when you're 65.
Right. Yeah. Like the typical situation. And like, if you look at the plans that they put together and the models that they put together, it's like, those are typically for those people who make a more medium or a little bit of money over a long period of time. Whereas obviously professional athletes, we make a whole lot of money in a very short period of time, right? Mm-hmm. And what I realize is that that's more like the way that, my opinion, right, of the way that our portfolio should be matched should be more geared towards the way that, that billionaires or high net worth individuals like construct their portfolios. So the way that I started constructing my portfolio was like about 60-70% private equity, including real estate, right? And maybe 15-20% in the markets, and some in cash, and some in some crypto, and some in some other areas, right? But it was, to me, that made more sense.
How'd you find those early opportunities? I mean, there's the conventional wisdom of, the advisors, but when did you, how did you get these other opportunities outside of kind of what they were advising?
Network. I was and I still am. I still love to just meet people, learn about what they do, and then try to bring value to them. That's typically what I do. Like when we go to Gobundance or whatever, like I don't really talk too much about what I do with people. Like most people, all right, if you do a little research, he played basketball. And most people would probably keep it there. Like, oh, he used to play basketball. He made a bunch of money. Now he's just hanging out. Like, no, I do a lot of other stuff too.
I didn't wonder if you played basketball because when we met, we were sitting down and then you stood up. And then I thought, what? Dude, I don't follow, as you know, Anthony, I don't follow any sports. And then you stood up and I was like, oh shit, I've had this guy played basketball because I had no idea.
Something.
Yes.
He probably played something at some point,
Anthony, I have a follow-on question for that. You're like, a lot of these guys, like I said, you're going in, you said you bought yourself a small treat and then you put everything into investments. Are people going, Anthony, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you enjoying your success? Go spend money. Like, a lot of times we have headwinds when it comes to mindset, right? The people we surround ourselves ends up being like our net worth and our cash flow and like our health. And so like, it's sort of a dovetail on Gabe's question. Like, what's your mindset to pick the right investments? Because you're right. A lot of people see maybe professional athletes. You have a little fame. You have a target on your head. They want to use your name to exploit your name to get rich, or they want you to invest in their stuff. But like, what's your mindset to stay disciplined, to continue to invest, buy yourself a pair of shoes? Great. But then you go back into buying a boring rental house for cash flow. How do you overcome that when you're surrounded by people? And by the way, people, they're pulling up in like crazy cars, right? You're around people that are making obscene amount of money. They're pulling up in Ferraris and Lamborghinis. They're spending an obscene amount of money out at night. They're young. Like, how do you stay focused? Is it your faith? Because I know you've got a very strong faith. Is your mother in the back of your head talking to you? Hey man, like, what is that? Because to me, that's fascinating. Because me as a young kid, I'd have been the idiot in the car, right? So how do you handle that?
So let me finish the question he asked as far as like where it all come from, like where did the opportunities come from and all that. So for me, Gabe, I think we've maybe talked about this in the past a little bit, but I'm really big on doing business with people I know, right? Like, I really like doing business with family and friends, and it's actually the complete opposite of what most people say typically, like, oh, never do business with family and friends. I'm like, hey, listen, if I'm going to succeed, if things are going to go well and people are going to make money, I'd rather it be my cousin or my sister or
That's
my
awesome.
brother or my good friend than some rando down the street that pitched me some deal, right? I've done random deals. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't. I've done deals with family and friends. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, right? To me, like, the success rate really has not been too much different. It's just been, obviously, whenever we have success, like I've had, one of the things I want to accomplish is I want to get or help 100 people in my life make $1 million. Not because $1 million makes them free. It's just that it's just a mark, right? Like, hey, it's just something to achieve, right? And so, like, I got probably 6 or 7 on the list right now. If this real estate deal that we're doing, or we got an offer on, if it goes through, add another 3 guys, right? So, definitely working on that, but like just networking and just surrounding myself with people and getting to know them really, hopefully deeply, and before I even get in business with them, that kind of became my MO. And then, like I said, sometimes it worked and sometimes it hasn't, but overall, I've been satisfied with the results. And then on your question, staying disciplined, to me, it wasn't a choice. It was really just like, it was me understanding the reality of my situation. I knew that I was signing 1-year deals. 1-year deal, you're guaranteed to get that money for that year. That's it. So any financial planning, any future planning, that does not include me making X, Y, and Z amount of money 2, 3, 4 years from now, because that wasn't on the table. And so, it really kept me hungry, really kept me disciplined on if I signed a 3 or 4 year deal, there would have been an increased chance of me maybe I will go buy that crazy car or whatever. But I think a part of what kept me disciplined was the fact that I was signing 1-year deals. I signed a couple 2-year deals, but the second year was non-guaranteed or partial guarantee, or, it wasn't locked in. So I still had to go earn it. And so every single year, and I look back and I'm like, man, it would have been nice to sign a 3 or 4 year deal, but it would have changed me. I actually I think it changes anybody in sports, right? I know that, Gabe, you don't watch a lot of sports. Travis, I don't know if you do or not, but in sports, if you follow any sport, let's say football or basketball, typically when somebody signs a big, crazy, fat deal, let's say 3, 4, 5 year deal, that first year, maybe even that second year, they'll probably play pretty decent, but it's not as good typically, right? They relax, right? It's because they're locked in. Like it's typical, it's normal. Just like being up 20 in a game, you're up 20. Typically teams come back from 20 because people relax when you're up 20.
You take the foot off the gas.
You take the foot off the gas, right? And so for me, my whole career, I was never able to take the foot off the gas. And so, and that also translated into me being a more prudent investor. And I made sure that every single time I got a check, I'm putting away 60, 70, 80% of that into something else.
So in hindsight, like, do you look back and be like, I'm actually feel blessed that I got 1-year contracts because it made you incredibly scrappy. That's that's just an acknowledgement. Just like I could see, like in hindsight, probably during when it was happening, you're like, dang it, like give me some breathing room here. But in hindsight, it kept you scrappy, right? And I noticed that with myself. I sold my company, had a big capital event, and I took my foot off the gas, and I went on defense, right? And that's good to a point. But my question to you is, like, is your foot still on the gas? Or, I mean, you've got financial freedom, you've got financial, you're what we call I'm sure you've hit R1. So it's like, you're comfortable. How do you, and this is a question for me because I struggle with this. How do you get up and just like get scrappy again every single day? Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're more in the defense part of your life now financially.
Well, are you calling Anthony soft, Travis?
I don't think I called. Did I call you soft? I don't think so.
I don't know.
If I did,
no.
Just text me.
No,
and told
you
me
did. So, I didn't take it as you calling me soft. But
I get soft, mentally soft.
No, and I get what you're saying. But honestly, this is how, Travis. I wake up every single day, and my mindset is to help other people. Honestly, like that is it. Like my family is financially secure. Honestly, like there's people like, oh, he can ride off into the sunset. Like I didn't make it. I made a lot of money compared to regular life, like compared to just like your typical world.
Sure.
But in the basketball world, I was poor, like extremely poor. Like I was bottom basement, low class, right? But what I did was I just never allowed any of that stuff, the environment I was in, to affect my normal, right? So when you talk about the cars and the clothes and all that stuff, like that's awesome for you guys. Like, this is so dope. Like I love that shirt that you have on. It costs $3,000. I would never buy a $3,000 shirt. That's me. Like even if I had $1 billion, I'm not buying a $3,000 shirt because that's just not me. So just seeing it all, experiencing all, it actually helped me to realize that's not what I want, right? That wasn't important to me. And so, getting out of the NBA, having a good nest egg, having a nice portfolio, having cash flow, being in a position where we are financially free. So I'm like, because for a while, I was trying to figure out, well, what's next? Like, what do I want to go be great in? Like, I thought that was the key. I needed to go be great in the next thing. Then I realized shortly thereafter that, that's what I felt like I was missing. I wasn't great at anything anymore. But then I realized I don't need to be great. I don't need to be great at anything. Like that's not a requirement of life. I've already done that. Like, so for me, it's like, okay, well, how can I continue to, push, right? Cause I'm not your guy that's just going to go sit on a beach and retire ever. Like I'm going to be 80 years old. I'm still going to be like, what's the next deal we're going to be looking at? Right. Like, because that's just who I am.
How you're wired.
It's how I'm wired. I love doing deals. Doesn't mean I'm going to just go do deals and be stupid. Right. But I just love the game. I love to create. And really that's what it is. It's creation. I love creation. And so to be able to go out into the world and create. And for me now, like I said, it's to try to create for the people around me, my assistant, my family, my friends, the people I want to see succeed. Like I'm doing all these different things so that we can build something that can help them. And so build something so big that it spills over, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, like this is amazing.
I love hearing you say that. I love your emphasis on relationships and partnerships with friends and family. I mean, life is about relationships, right? And so I love the emphasis you put on relationships and helping other people. Going back to basketball a bit, I'm curious, why do you think you ended up playing 14 years? I mean, these 1-2 year contracts, that's not typical of a professional athlete to play for 14 years. I mean, there's those that do, and some beyond, but typically not. Like, why do you think you had such a long career?
Man, if I had to give credit to a couple things, one thing that Travis, you brought up earlier was my faith. And that is something that's super important to me, that I wear on my sleeve, that I'm super open about and very vocal about, because it's something that in order to do life for me, that's been a requirement. Like, I just haven't had the opportunity. I would have not been able to go through the adversity I've gone through, through professional sports, through losing my mom at an early age, through some of the things that have happened in business or whatever, without just a steadfast faith, right? Number one. Number two, just accepting my role. That was the biggest thing that I was able to bring to a team, and it kept me getting jobs. Every single team I was on, I got a role from that coach, and sometimes it changed, but for the most part, like, I got a reputation and I filled a role, and over time, like even back in college, like I would always look forward. I would always say, well, if I'm in high school, what I need to work on to get to college, or what do I need to do to play in college? And so I'd work on those things in high school, because I know if I'm working like I'm a college player in high school, then high school is going to be easy, right? High school is going to be, oh, well, if I'm working out like I need to be working out in college, I'm going to kill these guys in high school, right? Well, Same thing is when I got to college, I started thinking like, well, how can I start preparing for the NBA? How can I start preparing for professional basketball? Because if I prepare like that, then college is going to be easy, right? And so, but what I realized in college, by that time, I realized like there's physical limitations, right? Gabe, you talked about it. Travis, you talked about, you guys are short.
That's what the NBA told me. Physical limitations.
There's physical limitations. Like I'm LeBron, me and LeBron James are about the same height, but we do not have the same attributes.
Never heard of the guy.
Yeah. He's a decent basketball player. But we have very similar height, length, but athleticism and strength and speed and everything. Like he hit the lottery, the gene lottery, right?
He's a freak of nature. Yeah,
absolutely. But I didn't really realize that wasn't really going to be possible until about college, where I was like, oh, this is not just about work. This is about like what God gives you and then what you do with it, right? Like wow. that is it, right? That is the whole entire piece of the puzzle. If God didn't give you enough, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Like it's just not going to work out. But if God gives you a certain amount and then you maximize that with your work, well, then you're going to maximize yourself. So then I started realizing in college, my goal is not to be LeBron or to be whoever. It is to be the best Anthony Tolliver I can possibly be. That was my entire focus, right? And so once that became my focus, I realized, okay, once I make it to the NBA, or if I'm able to make it to the NBA, I'm not going to be LeBron. So who can I be like? What role can I fill on a team?
That's my question. What was that role?
It was, so I'll give you even a specific person. It was Robert Horry, right? So he was on the Spurs, on the Lakers. Before that, he was on the Rockets. He was a young, super athletic, like really good player. Then as he got older, he started filling a role as a three-point shooter, defensive player, rebounder, just a hard-nosed guy. And I was like, I could do that. I could do what he is doing every single night, playing 15 to 25 minutes, coming off the bench, just being a great teammate. I was like, I can do that. So I stopped focusing on all the other extra bull crap that everybody else is focusing on, all the extra ball handling. I'm like, that's not going to be my role. I'm only going to be shooting, playing defense, and playing hard-nosed basketball. And guess what? I got onto teams. They allowed me to fill that role. And guess what? That team maybe would move on from me, but then the next team say, we like that guy, so bring him on.
You went niche, which is like in business, you say go niche or go broke. And you figured out where you could provide value, and you focused, you stayed in your lane. Man, what a cool parallel.
Yeah. How I was going to ask very similar, like how did that transition into the business world? Because you've mentioned a couple of times, business is a game. Like how have you taken that kind of that same mindset and action into the business world? Have you niched down there as well?
I have. So across the board, really, I know that, this is, a show about real estate. So we can talk about real estate. And one of the couple niches that we've had a lot of success in. So one is senior living, or actually independent living, not senior living. So there's a lot of senior living. There's a lot of nursing homes. There's a lot of all that stuff. Well, one of our development mentors, he kind of found this niche in the independent living. So it was 55 and older, but they don't need the extra care. They don't need the extra, services or whatever. But it was kind of like this luxury independent living. And so we dove into that. We did a few developments in that space and had a lot of success. Done really well with that space, in that space. Another is truck parking, right? Which is kind of like, it's real estate because we're buying land and we're turning it into semi-truck parking lots. And so the deal I was referencing earlier.
Man, if that isn't niche, by the way.
I can't believe we've never talked about that before, because I had this like 1 acre flat gravel lot that I basically got free with the mobile home park that I purchased. And that's where my brain went. I was like, semi trucks to park here would be great, but right now it's sitting empty. So I'd love to talk to you more about that offline.
Yeah. So we have 3 units. We have 2 in Jacksonville, 1 in Kansas City. And our goal was several years ago to grow, to have 10, 12, 15 of these things. But then I think other people found out about this space and people with deeper pockets too. So we just really wish we could have capitalized on it about 5 years ago, because people were just, it's all mom and pop, and there was no real like industry yet.
Anthony, what are people paying to park semis?
So a nightly could be, anywhere from 70 to, it depends on the market. Sure. It really depends on the market. But yeah, I mean, put it this way, like we're making really good money. Yeah. We're making really good money on these. We got an unsolicited offer for 3 parking lots for over $13 million.
Wow.
Dang. What's the cap rate on that? 13 million.
Probably in the four high 4s.
Because there's not really any maintenance at all.
No, and we actually, so what we did, we took the traditional model, right? Which is, hey, you got a couple employees, you got, people, right? We've replaced basically everything with technology, right? So the gates are all tech based. And so we have a guy who is like a property manager, but he goes and checks on the lot and does inventory once a day for 30 minutes. Right. But that's like it. Like everything else is cameras and everything else. So we have a fully autonomous system that we built from scratch because nobody else had done it. But that's really where the value is coming from. The lots are cash flowing and they do well. But the people who are trying to buy it, they're really trying to buy the system that we created. But you talk about niches, like there's just finding things that, like I said, nobody else really is focused on. A big blanket is an example. Nobody else is focused on big blankets. Like I'm huge, so I'm like, I want a big blanket. So why wouldn't anybody else, right? And so that business ended up being about 25 times bigger than I thought it could ever be. But
I never wanted one until I got one. So
you have the hoodie. You have the hoodie. So we have blankets that are 10 foot by 10 foot.
I'll check the mail. I haven't seen mine come in the mail yet, but I just had an idea for you. I'm sure you've already thought of this on this parking lot. So you said you built this tech from the ground up, right?
Yeah, my partners did. Yep.
So my partner and I, Mitch, bought an RV park, and it was mom and pop managed. And we found this really cool SaaS software that did dynamic pricing and booking and online booking. And it was these tech guys that made a bunch of money in Silicon Valley. And they started buying RV parks, and they're like, man, we need to build the tech instead. And they built this amazing tech platform. So are you selling the tech platform?
Are you afraid of CampSpot, Travis?
Or do you, CampSpot, or do you lease it back? Do you rent them the technology and then build that technology product? Because if more people are buying parking lots, maybe that's another business side. I'm a tech guy too. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that, we've talked about that, but we also talked about the ability for, us to not have, if we don't have to have, any, I can't think of what it's called, non-competes, right? Like right now, that's not in the contract. So we would basically lose the name but we would not lose the ability to go replicate what we've already done.
I know, man, that tech is an intellectual property. It's probably worth something, and you could apply it to other industries. Sorry, that's where my mind goes.
No, it's all good. But no, we've thought a little bit about that. That's why the non-compete was huge for us is like, if they're asking for non-compete, we're asking for a lot more money.
I feel like we could dig into like an hour on every single one of your,
let's do a one sheet. Let's dig into Anthony.
Well, I mean, for real, the 55 and older, independent living, the parking lots, like there's fishing probably rods. An hour. That's right. The fishing pole, the blanket. I mean, I feel like there's an hour show probably within every single one of those businesses. So, gosh.
Yeah, I've been blessed to be able to touch on a lot of different things. And the part of my strategy, or part of the reason why I invested in so many different things, was because, like I said, I'm a pretty practical guy. I try to say pretty practical. So like the reason why I got involved with the blankets, because I was like, I would want that, right? And I got involved with the fishing rod company because there was nobody, not a soul in the industry focused on kids. And I'm like, whoever fishes clearly wants to get their kids into fishing. So why is there nobody focusing on kids? Well, it's because the margins weren't as big as the adult fishing. So we're like, we're not like in this to be greedy. We're not in this to whatever. Like, yeah, sure, the margins are, let's say, 25% lower on kids stuff than it is for adult stuff. But if you build a business there, now we're actually over 50% in adult stuff, right? But we were able to get the shelf space in Walmart, Target, and all the literally every retailer on the, all the main retailers in fishing. We're in it. Like we have shelf space, and it's because we got in with kids fishing, right? And so it's pretty crazy.
Anthony, if you had to guess, or maybe how many different lines of revenue, different businesses, including real estate, do you think you pull from?
Well, so for Say You Can, our business Say You Can, we have 100 and let's say 10 units, I think now, or so. And some of those are individual units. Obviously some of those are individual units, but some of them are developments that are 40 units or 15 or whatever. I don't know. Like how many checks or whatever, because a lot of the Say You Can stuff, we kind of consolidate, throw into one account, and then we're able to distribute, like, because it's me and him, just two people. But so it's like, if we separated them out, like maybe 25, over the course of the year. But like I said, those get consolidated into just a couple distributions a year because of the way we have our business set up. But the other stuff, I mean, I love having kind of those seeds planted in different areas, because literally any given week, like I'll get an email from a company I invested in 4 years ago. Hey, we're sending a distribution check. Where should we send it? I'm like, yes, this is great.
It's like finding money on your couch cushion.
Yes, right? I love it.
Real quick. Part of the reason I asked, just to help expand our listeners' mindset, right? Like I think a lot of people think like, I can only do this one thing, or I can only be invested in this one thing. And I feel like you've kind of taken, business and real estate and the world kind of like a playground, and you're just like, I'm going to play in it I'm going to play it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to put a little here and put a little here and put a little here. So I more so ask not for specifics, but more to get our listeners' mindset around like what's possible for them. Like it doesn't have to be just one opportunity or one type of property or one asset class or one business. And you have such a great testament of being able to do that.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. So I did 7 to 8 with Aaron and Daniel. I don't know. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we were doing the pre-interview. You know, it was kind of like a time frame where I kind of felt like I had the imposter syndrome, in Gobundance, because I'm like, dude, I play basketball, right? I invest, which is cool. Like I have a great portfolio, but like you guys are out here freaking killing it, right? Like I was looking at all you guys that were in real estate and all you guys in these different niches and different areas. And like you're 10, 20 years in or, whatever. And I'm just like, man, like I'm trying to I got a lot of catching up to do. That's how I was looking at it. Right. And Aaron, I can't remember if it was Aaron or Daniel. I think it was Aaron. He was like, dude, like, cause somebody had talked about like, hey, dive really, really deep into one thing, get really, really good at it, and then start branching out. Right. And so he kind of opened my mind up because I didn't even look at basketball as my one thing. Right. I didn't it was just like, what am I going to get really, really good at so that I can start, what am I going to dive deep into and get really, really good at to produce money? He's like, dude, you already did that. Like you already did what most of these guys are trying to do with what you're seeing. Like what you're seeing is they're trying to replicate what you've already done these past 14 years. And so, you're in a much, you're in a different position to where you can do other things like this portfolio that you have is like, you can do that because you've gotten really freaking good at one thing and gotten paid a lot of money for that. And I was like, dang, you're right.
And we were just talking about imposter syndrome last week on our elite call. Yeah, and I'm like, it's amazing. You get, I like you get in these circles, and you hear these high achievers say they had imposter syndrome, and they felt like, and here you are, Anthony, like professional basketball career, and you're investing in all these things, and you walk into Gobundance and think and feel like an imposter, right? Where for a lot of people, they're looking at you going, oh shit, I hope I deserve to be here. And I like to always say, like, if you're in the room, like that's the room you're supposed to be in. Like I've any event that I've gone to, I feel like the people that are there, anytime I've traveled with a group of people, I'm like, the people that are supposed to be here, the people that are here are the people that are supposed to be here. And so I love hearing, even someone that I would consider a high achiever say they walked into that group and had a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think that we're all our biggest critics, right? I think that we're always trying to, we're trying to be the best version of ourselves, and we're trying to figure out kind of what's next, and how, you look at somebody else's life, and it's like, I'm not a comparison guy, even though I come from an industry where that is just what it is. Like, how do you get a contract? Well, you get a contract because you compare your stats and your impact to the next person who got this contract. Right? It's always compare, right? You're comparing. You're competing all the time, which nothing wrong with competitiveness, but comparing it can still joy faster than anything. So for me, that's been something I've really tried to stay away from as much as possible, is comparing myself or my situation or my contracts or, my portfolio to anybody else. It's like, hey man, somebody else gets a really stupid fat contract. I'm like, I'm a fan, right? Because that's for them. That's not for me, right? Like I'm just not, it just wasn't for me like that. If I wasn't a free agent, it wasn't picked up by that team at that time with that contract, it's not mine. So why would I be mad that somebody else got a blessing, So I'm just constantly trying to stay in a position where I'm not comparing myself to anybody else. But at the same time, like I said, imposter syndrome, I think, is something that affects anybody at some point if there's any form of humility in them.
We've all got our brains talking to us constantly. It's like the inside voice chatter. The point I was making on that, because we talk about go niche, get to freedom, and then land and expand, right? And it sounds like that's sort of the philosophy that you took. I had a question for you, because a lot of people probably listening are thinking, well, yeah, I can't play professional basketball. Like, that's why Anthony, a lot of people they talk themselves out of it, right? Like our friends or our own brain, we're talking about the self-talk. What would your advice be to people? Because I also reject that notion that, oh, Anthony's successful because he was a good basketball player and he had these talents, because there's a lot of people that get out of professional sports that are broke as a joke, right? So I absolutely reject that notion. And, this tribe's all about scale. Like, how can you scale to freedom? What are some of the shortcuts, or not even shortcuts, but what are some of the things and tactics you can do to actually build a portfolio, whether it's business and real estate? What would your advice be to people that might be thinking, well, I can't do that because I don't have this background. I don't have this history. Like, if someone was sitting here, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's all about consistency. So my advice for success, or what in my basketball camps, or really in any environment where people are seeking advice from me on how to be successful, it is hard work, consistency equals success. And that's it, right? Like it's not, and success is also its own thing. Like, it's its own definition. Everybody has their own definition of success. So if your success is being a billionaire, I couldn't just say hard work plus consistency equals success, because even if you're the hardest worker in the room and you do it every single day, there's no guarantee you're going to be a billionaire, right? But to me, success is maximizing you, right? Like, it's maximizing whatever you are capable of doing. And some people are built to absolutely crush it, right? And if they work hard and they're consistent with it, they're going to be massively successful. Like, and that could be in a financial way. But some people aren't, right? Some people don't have the capacity, right? And that's fine. But somebody else's success could be hard work, consistency equals success. They have a 9-to-5 job. They take care of their family. They have a healthy relationship with their wife and their kids. That is success. Like, so to me, like, being able to, before you even start talking about, how did you become successful or whatever, you need to clearly define what success means to you. And then, hey, you go for it, right? It's hard work, consistency, and, that's going to give you the best chances of being successful.
But that ties into some of the people that are trying to find deals. It's a tough deal environment, or it's been for the last couple of years. We have people, our elites in our tribe, that are constantly trying. Maybe they're in contract, they're out of contract. They can't find deals that work. And we always tell them, be consistent, right? Like, follow the game plan. Because it's something you just glossed over, but I wanted to talk about. Like, you got cut. You said, I got cut over and over and over again. Well, that's a series of mini failures. And a lot of people might have one or two of those and say, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to go do something else. So I would also echo, like, consistently fail forward, consistently learn, and get your ass back up and keep looking for that next deal, or keep fine tuning that skill set. Or to your point, like, figure out your role in your niche and keep going after it. So I didn't want to gloss over that, because people think that, like, oh, he's an NBA player, he's like this massive success. Man, you had a lot of failures.
Failure is the key. Like, failure is like, there's one thing that you can say across the board of all the guys who make it into the NBA, all the guys who make it in business, all the guys who make it in real estate. And I say guys, girls too, right? But anybody who is successful, you look at their stories and it's going to be filled with failure.
Yep.
100%. Because no one in the history of mankind that I've ever heard, I've never heard a story that went, I woke up as a baby, never failed all the way through elementary, high school, college, never missed a question on any test, never missed a shot in basketball, played in the NBA and was all world because I never missed. I was the best player ever. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you lose games, right? You play games, you lose. You build from it, or you grow from it. You work a little harder. You keep pushing, because, the best players, the reason why they're the best players is because they're working the hardest. Why are they working the hardest? Because they literally at some point got destroyed by somebody. It was like, holy crap, I need to keep working. And it's just how it goes. And that's where people who, are afraid of failure, they're also afraid of success, because they're never going to succeed unless they attack failure. They got to go attack failure, got to go figure out a way to fail. Like they say, fail forward. Like you don't want to fail backwards. You don't want to, lose all your money. And then you're like, crap, like I'm in a bad spot. But at the same time, how many times have you guys heard of guys going bankrupt and then rebuilding it? Right. And especially real estate. It happens a lot. It happens a lot more than you want. Like it's kind of uncomfortable to hear how many times guys are like, yeah, I went bankrupt, but then I built it back, and now I'm worth 120 million. It's like, dang, you went broke whenever you're 25. Yeah,
and you learn some big lessons.
Big lessons, and guess what? They built upon those failures.
I know we're way over time, but this is such a great interview. I'm loving this. I think I have two questions. One I'll let Gabe take. The last question. I do want you to talk about your book, The Foundation for Financial Excellence. Like, what's the premise of that? Like, what can people expect to get out of that book? What can they walk away from? Because I love the title.
So I know that people say I'm like co-writer or whatever. I'm not a co-writer. I contributed to that book, even though I think he even gave me more credit than I was supposed to. He wrote the book, right? Like, what happened was he interviewed me for that book, and he was like, dude, you need to be a part of this. I was like, what? Because he just loved what I was talking about and how I was talking about it. So what we ended up doing was went back and I read the whole thing over and over and over. And I ended up just giving, like, I have a section, in each section is called Tolliver takes. And so basically in each of the sections, whether it be about credit, whether it be about home ownership, whatever it may be, I just gave, like a little blurb of like my opinion or my thoughts on this section. And so I always, I take it as a compliment. Thank you. But it's like, I wish I was a co-author. I'm not quite, but.
Well, you're a humble guy. He wouldn't have been interviewing you if you were just like a slacker.
Yeah.
So,
but the premise of the book, or kind of like the niche behind the book, is it's using sports analogies to kind of like help people understand financial literacy. So just being able to kind of relate to a lot of athletes, because it's geared towards or written for maybe like a high school / college age, athlete. And that's kind of like the focus. But anybody who understands or enjoys sports, it would be something that would be beneficial. And if they like enjoy sports, but they don't really understand financial literacy that much, then it would be another, it would be a book that would be intriguing to them, because then it becomes, that being, credit or whatever. Maybe I just keep saying that, but being kind of put into the light of a baseball scenario. Then they're like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
There's probably a lot of parallels between sports and business.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more than you would think. It actually inspired me to write a kid's book. So I actually wrote a kid's book. I haven't published or anything yet, but I will at some point whenever my life slows down. But it's very similar, but it's all basketball references. So basketball references and financial literacy. It's something that I'll end up doing at some point.
The last question that we ask all of our guests on the 0 to 100 podcast show: if you were to lose it all, you didn't have the network, you didn't have the net worth, you didn't have the money,
but the knowledge.
You have the knowledge. You're sitting on your friend's couch. You've lost it all. What's the first thing that you go and do?
That's a really good question. I don't think I've never been asked that question. I think that the first thing I'm doing, if my current network is currently gone,
we used to let people have their network, but then we realized it was too easy.
Yeah. I think that's where I would start, though. I think I would start with building a new network. And that, because that's free, right? Like, you don't have any money, like start building a network and because if I still have the knowledge that I have, I still have kind of the experiences that I currently have. I'm going to go figure out a way to bring value to somebody else, which is going to bring a check to me. Like, so in one way, shape or form, you got to go create money. And so to me, I think the best and quickest way to be able to do that without going to Dairy Queen and getting a job is
Hey, I know that guy.
nothing wrong with Dairy Queen. Nothing wrong with Dairy Queen.
That was
right?
that was my wife's first real job too.
Yeah, great blizzards, right? Like upside down, right? But I'm going to Google real estate networking event. I'm going to Google, any of these types of masterminds or anything that has like some free, meetups or whatever. I'm gonna start meeting people and just figuring out a path to bring them value. Because if I can bring somebody who has money or who has influence or opportunity value, then they'll figure out a way to pay me. So that's what I would do first.
Man, you've said that so many times, and I want to pause on that for a second. Throughout this interview, you said provide value. I want to provide value. I want to provide value. I want to provide value. First answer to this question wasn't, I'm going to go find a deal and I'm going to wholesale. It's like, I'm going to meet people, which Gabe talks about relationships sometimes. I don't know, maybe not. He's not a big relationship guy. I'm joking, but provide value. And if you talk to a lot of billionaires, like people ask him, how do you make $1 billion? Like, go provide value to 1 billion people. Go provide value to, provide global value. And so if you take anything away from this interview, it's persistence. Anthony got cut over and over again. He failed forward. He was consistent, and he provides value to a ton of people. Man, so grateful that you were on the show today. Really appreciate you. And yes, I'd love it if you came to Scottsdale. That'd be cool.
Yeah, shoot me the information. I'll see if it lines up with my schedule. I'd love to come check you guys out.
Thank you for jumping on the podcast. So many gems in there. I mean, anyone that listens to the show, go back, listen to it again and again. There's so many takeaways from this interview.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.